Is there someone in your life that you hate? Not like oh, I can't stand that actor's movies, they're so dumb or whatever. But yeah, I mean the real kind, like the preoccupying kind. The kind where the thought of that person shifts your mood and it stays shifted. It could be someone you know, it could be a coworker, a family member, a neighbor. It's very likely someone you've never met, a public figure, a politician, someone you only know through a screen. Maybe it's someone who's been dead for 100 years. Could be someone dead for longer than that. We know exactly what I'm talking about. I just have to do some silly little intro. So keep this person in mind, whoever it is, because I want to take a careful look at what this thing actually is that we're carrying around. Because today we're talking about the fun topic of hate, where it lives, what it's actually made of, why I think most of us are carrying around something we've fundamentally misidentified. Some of the oldest Buddhist writing is famous for breaking down concepts into these exhaustive, almost comically detailed lists from a time before writing existed. You had to memorize, so they're very rhythmic, and they kind of break things down into, like, is it this thing or that thing? Is it not this thing? Is it not this thing? Is it both this thing and that thing? Is it both not this thing and that thing? Is it neither or both this thing? And they go on like this. So I'm going to borrow that lovely, very popular, not at all annoying technique. Please once again bring to mind your current most evil person who has ever lived of the week. Look at them very closely. What do you hate about them? Do you hate... Is it the hair on their head? Is it the hair on their arms? Is it their arms themselves? How about their kneecaps? Let's go lower. Maybe it's the kneecaps. Or, oh no, I was thinking of the front. So you must hate each individual vertebrae of the spine, or maybe only the A1 and C4. Maybe it's more inner. Maybe it's their pancreas that really gets you going, or their left hip socket. And, nope, it's their lymph nodes, isn't it? It's their lymphatic system. Of course that's not it. I'm being purposefully annoying and ridiculous. You could go through the most exhaustive anatomy textbook ever written, these things that are like 10 feet thick. You could disassemble that person completely, and there is not a single physical component that you actually hate about them. It's a pretty obvious point. You don't hate their body. You don't even hate, like, a fold in their brain. You don't hate their pituitary gland or their nervous system considered in isolation. You hate the whole person. The emergent properties of a human being that is more than the sum of their parts. It's the thoughts that produce their words and actions that you find so intolerable. Fine, we nailed it. So what produces the thoughts? I'm not telepathic, so I'm assuming you're not either. We can only look at our own thoughts. Where do our own thoughts come from? Thinking is kind of like breathing. It sort of happens on its own. You can step in and influence it within certain parameters. But did you set those parameters? Actually, yes. But you did it when you were too young to know what you were doing and what was being done to you. You were taught to think the way you think by people who actually weren't considering that that's what they were doing to you. All your internal talk is the result of the external talk you picked up as a kid. Most people don't experience their thoughts as something very highly controllable, slightly influenceable at best. Familiar currents you can nudge here and there. Looking at your own head that way, do you think the person you hate experiences their thoughts any differently? Do you think they are in complete control with what is going on up here? Probably not. And I can already hear you shouting at the screen, like, you're trying to make my hatred seem completely irrational. I see through your game, but this person is genuinely harmful. Loads of other people agree with me. You're not going to talk me out of what I've seen with my own eyes. You caught me. So, assuming the person you hate experiences themselves the sort of way you do as an active agent in their own life, why do you think they behave so differently from you? Consider the circumstances. We'll start with people's upbringings. We all are subject to parental influences, our educational environment, the ideas that were accepted in our household versus the ones that weren't, interests that were encouraged and ones that were quietly discouraged or actively shut down through shame or whatever. You may not know the specifics, but the general shape of that process, being formed by forces you didn't choose, by people who were themselves formed by forces they didn't choose. That's not unique to them. That's the universal human condition. You don't need to take this person you hate and then purposely visualize sympathetic scenarios, or you don't need to manufacture compassion that you don't feel. We're only interested in what's actually true. So I started with the body because the body is concrete. Obviously, there's nothing to hate about the individual body. Now we're looking deeper into the formation process, and the formation process is the same one that produced you and me and everyone else who has ever and will ever live. Different inputs, different outputs, completely explainable. Someone raised in a household where cruelty was normalized, where certain ideas were enforced and others were punished, where the range of acceptable behavior was sharply and arbitrarily defined, of course they turned out that way. Given those specific conditions and no foreknowledge of who they would become or who would eventually hate them for it, how could anyone have turned out any other way? Here's the little protesting voice, like, people do overcome difficult upbringings. Not everyone who was abused as a child becomes a child abuser. In fact, most of them don't. Otherwise, we would have reached 100% child abuse a long time ago. True. And that's exactly the point. The outcome is never predetermined, which means it was never fully in their control either. They didn't know any more than you did at that age what kind of person they were in the process of becoming. We all grow up thinking we're going to be Superman. So far, nobody's made it. So you can't locate the hatred in their body. You can see that they were shaped by a process neither of you designed. And yet, that person is still here. They still do what they do. They still represent what they represent. So here's the last piece, and this one is the strangest. Who is this person really? Even if it's someone you interact with regularly, like a family member or a coworker, you have no direct access to what's happening in their mind, what it feels like to be them, what they tell themselves about their own behavior. And if it's someone you only know through media, through a screen, the gap is even wider. You're working entirely from a curated, filtered, partial image assembled by other people who are all pushing their own agendas. You don't actually hate this person. You hate an idea of them that you constructed, with help certainly, but constructed nonetheless. And that person, the one in your head, is not who they actually are. Nobody is who anyone else thinks they are. There are roughly 8 billion people on Earth, but if you account for the fact that every single person has a unique perception of every other person, a completely individual image as distinct as the people themselves, the number of effectively separate people in existence is closer to 8 billion factorial. That number might not be correct because not everyone on Earth knows everyone else, but you get the point. It's a big number. Everyone you interact with is interacting with a version of you that you have never seen and have no access to. The way you see others is not the way they see themselves, and nobody sees you the way you see yourself. So none of this is an argument to just collapse into this amoral fog where nothing matters and no one can be held responsible for anything. You can still oppose harmful people and harmful ideas. You can still work as a positive force in your community. You can still call things out when they need to be called out. Nothing about this argument asks you to go soft on the genuine adversities of life. What it does ask is whether you need to carry this particular hate weight with you while you do all that. Because hatred, the preoccupying, mood-altering, stays with you, clench kind that we started with, doesn't sharpen your perception. It clouds it. It doesn't make you more effective to opposition. It makes you easier to manipulate, easier to exhaust, and harder to reason with. Eliminating it doesn't eliminate the problem that caused the hate association in the first place, but it lets you see the problem clearly for the first time. So I hope this landed in a useful way. One very easy practice we can do is when we feel very triggered by an event or a person that we feel causes this hate to arise, is to really kind of turn back into ourselves and feel compassion for our own hurt, rather than turning that into aggression towards the exterior circumstance or person that we're blaming it on. If nothing else, we can do that. And then hopefully, if we get that under control, we can realize that we have more autonomy inside ourselves than we think. We can exercise this autonomy to sort of clear away the detritus that clouds our vision that was involuntarily imposed upon us by our surrounding circumstances. Thanks for spending your time here. Bye.